Okay, we are recording. There might be times when I mute because I'm going to sneeze or I have to blow my nose, and I'm not.
Just do one of these.
I'm just going to do it.
Just do one of these.
I'll do one of
It'll
these.
sound good though.
You think so?
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a cold. It's not COVID. It's just cold. It's just cold. These things
How did
still
you catch
exist.
a cold?
I pushed myself to the limit. Pushed myself to the physical limit.
But don't you get germs from other people?
I mean, viruses are everywhere. Like they don't just get transferred from person to person. Like when it rains, there are viruses that just rain down on us. Like they go through they travel in the atmosphere. They cling on.
That's unfortunate. I'm never going outside again.
See, that's like a germaphobe approach or perspective on life, and I just don't. I'm not there with you. I'm on the opposite end.
I just don't like getting sick.
I'm happy I'm sick because I know that it's going to make my immune system
because you feel alive.
Yeah, well, I just know that this is how we have survived.
You must not get very sick.
I don't think I get as sick as you. I think that when you get sick, you get really sick. I just have I gotta blow my nose and I might cough and my throat might hurt for a few.
Yeah, I dislocate ribs.
Yeah, you're done. Like you are out of commission for a long time.
I told you I was special, right?
You did for so many reasons, in so many ways.
I wish it was the right ones.
Maybe we should talk about health and wellness, like sickness.
Doesn't that have to do with magic?
Actually, yeah, I guess we could sort of. Yes, we could jump right in. Ladies and gentlemen, it is I'm No Expert. I am your host, Ben, joined as always by my friend and co-host, Jason Hui of Prometheus Lights and 4/7s. Jason, how are we doing?
Greetings, Benjamin. Everything is going absolutely perfectly. Could not be better.
That's amazing.
As evidenced by the green screen behind me.
Yeah, you can't fake the watchers, the viewers. You can fake the listeners, but you can't fake the viewers.
Yeah.
I'd say by now that anyone who's tuned in would know when Jason says that everything is perfect, that it's obviously sarcasm.
You should know that by now.
Because those words don't come out genuinely from your mouth ever.
Yeah, so we're starting out the day with some technical problems, and we decided just to push forward. Always forward, Ben.
Always forward, ever forward. Today's topic, actually, I think that we are going to tie in to this half empty perspective of yours. Like you're the pessimist in you, and we can talk how it is perhaps like just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh,
or how
that doesn't sound as good as
your sort of negative outlook on life is simply creating a life that lends itself to feeling negative about life.
Yeah, well, I do hope that I can bring a little bit more energy to this podcast than the last one. It was so bad. I'm just out of gas.
You're gonna have to, because I am a little bit under the weather. Listener, I have a common cold, which
called COVID.
You might not know this, but common colds still exist out there, and they circulate and they mutate and they come back seasonally, and that's what I have. And it's a runny nose and a little bit of a cough, and I'm actually on the other side of it. I'm getting better every day.
Oh, well, that's good. I was going to say, I'm impressed that you're here with us in the studio, even though you're not feeling well.
No, I woke up on Monday and I was like, oh yep, I'm a little bit sick, and I thought that I might be down for that day, but I was like, no, I think I can carry on, and I've just carried on all week, even though I'm not at 100%. I haven't gone out and done anything physical, which sort of sucks. That's the only bad part. Is we've had some nice snow out there, and I've really wanted to go and ski a little bit, but that would only make it worse. So I'm drinking.
Do you have some go-to practices when you get sick?
Yeah, just a lot of hydration, and then I want to eat whole foods as much as I can, and then I dose on the emergency type stuff and electrolytes. It's mainly just hydration and sleep. I try to overdo it on sleep, get to bed early. That's really kind of it. How about
sleep?
You're like an over-the-counter guy.
Yeah,
give
I
you the
self-medicate.
Robitussin and okay.
Yeah. No, I've over the years, as I do with many things, honed the process of getting sick. I don't know that I have it down to a science, but basically, we were talking about this, and maybe in the preamble, I don't know, but I tend to get really sick when I get sick. So I take a lot of stuff to basically try to mitigate the symptoms to a certain degree so that it doesn't get worse. Because anytime I get a head cold or anything, I'll go through the head cold part, and then it always drops down into my lungs. And then that is a long and drawn out process. And so I try to minimize that. And also sleep and hydrate and all that stuff. But, antihistamines, decongestants, hit it hard.
I don't know that we've recorded a podcast when you are on sort of in any of that, like in that process of either getting sick or coming out of sick, but I have talked to you and I've been around you when you are sick, and it is no joke. Like everything that you have described just then is like, oh, I should probably tell Jason that I really appreciate him as a friend, because I don't know that he's going to be around for much longer. Like this is it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in college, I used to get really sick.
I remember. So this is you. This is your immune system. This is what you got,
or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof.
Which is why I don't want to get COVID, because I don't know.
Yeah. That's a tough one right there.
But we're not talking about that today, Ben.
Well, you know what? We kind of are. I mean, we can come around to it. I think everything can be related to this topic. All right, Magick with a K. I'm on this bent right now, and this started with a buddy of mine recommending I watch Midnight Gospel, which is a series on Netflix. It's an animated series, but what it really is a conversation between the host Duncan Trussell, who has a podcast, and he brings on a guest, and they have a conversation, and someone has taken this conversation and animated it with like some of the most trippy, like psychedelic sort of animation, but it's a narrative that's happening in the background that while you're listening to this podcast interview, essentially. It's an awesome series. If you partake
this is like what every episode is?
Yeah, but it's a different, it's the host, Duncan Trussell, interviewing someone else, and then there's like this loose narrative in the animation that like kind of ties in with the conversation, but not completely. It's wild. I've never seen anything like it, and I highly recommend it to everyone. Friend recommended it to me, and one of the episodes, he interviews Damien Eccles. And maybe some of you recognize that name. Damien Eccles, when he was 18 years old, was convicted of triple homicide. He was part of the West Memphis Three. This is a sort of famous case. HBO did like an award-won documentary on it called Paradise Lost. He was wrongly convicted of this triple homicide of like 8-year-old boys or something. And because he was involved in like kind of the occult, listened to Metallica, like his church pastor said that he was a Satanist.
Did he play D&D?
Yeah, he probably played D&D. At the time, the narrative on the news was it was a satanic ritual, that these kids were like molested and killed as part of a satanic cult and ritual. And he was sentenced to death. He was on death row. He spent 18 years in prison on death row, and 8 of those in solitary confinement. DNA eventually DNA exonerates him. DNA evidence that's introduced 18 years later exonerates him, and he walks free. Now, he spent those 18 years in prison. He talks about this now. He has books about it. All his podcast interviews, he touches on this. He credits his practice of magic, his like investigation into magic, and his practice of his application of magic while on death row, with not only his survival in there, but thriving, to the point where in this interview on Midnight Gospel, he's saying, I'm grateful for that chance. Like, I'm grateful for that time on death row to be able to do nothing but focus on magic. He's like beaten every day, beaten to within an inch of his life by guards every day. And he's like, the only thing that kept me alive was magic. And I was like, what? Like magic? Like, what is he talking about? You
That's
know?
what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, like I'm hooked because you're a survivor of something that most people would just be like, even if they walked free, they would not be able to go on a podcast and talk as energetically as you. And they certainly would not say, I'm grateful for the 18 years
It
I
was a
spent on death
positive
row.
experience.
Yeah. And so his life now is devoted to not only continuing his practice of magic, but spreading the word. And when you start to peel back the layers, and he does this too, there are so many overlaps with like Buddhism, and think of any sort of meditative practice.
Right.
But the origins of this Western magic that he talks of and that he practices date back to like ancient Sumeria. And there are so many, like he unearths or presents so many of these like primary sources of some of the the origins of this magic, and other authors and other books that he read and sort of devoured. And I like listened to this and I got hooked, and now I am listening to every podcast I can possibly find with this guy. And the tie-in, what's so interesting to me is that there's a very real tie-in between his description of magic, like as he understands it, what I learned more of in Buddhism, and quantum physics, and sort of like the quantum field, and that thing that like sort of everything is, like how everything is energy.
Yep.
And you start to tie in like Lucas and the Force in the description of the Force. And I can't, like, my brain is so on fire over this stuff. Yeah, and it's exactly like, man, it's just wild to me. And so much of what he talks about is like mind, your thoughts, like control over your thoughts. A lot of it is like breath work, and a dedication to what is like breath work and meditation and being present and trying to like actively tap into this like basically this quantum field to control your reality, to like sort of manifest things that you want. Positivity comes into play. Like he even said on a recent podcast episode that I was listening to on Sunday, the day before I got sick, he's like, if I feel like a cold coming on, your mindset is I'm getting better every day. It's not I'm sick. Because when you wake up and you're like, I'm sick, and you start telling everybody around you, like, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick, it's like, yeah,
self-fulfilling.
It's self-fulfilling.
Do you think listening to that episode made you sick?
Yeah, I was probably like, I hope I don't get sick, because I thought about it a lot. I was like, yeah, how do I think about myself when I'm sick? Anyway, so I'm just gonna pause for a second and let you jump in. I talked.
Oh, I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, all right. I think before we go too far, I feel like, okay, we need a brief 30,000 foot description. But so what is happening here is Ben and I had a list of topics to pick from, and I was like, I don't like any of them. So Ben, you pick something. Wait, I guess magic was on the list, but I was like, I don't even know what that is. So let's talk about that. So I am with you, listener. I have no idea what's happening right now, which is fun. So, I mean, what you said, magic with a K, like, give me a brief description of what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, he puts that, he includes the K, and I don't know that he was the one to come up with it, but he does it in his books and in all his writings because he wants to clearly differentiate from like parlor trick magic, like sleight of hand,
like the
magic,
coin behind the ear,
all that stuff. He's like, this is not what that is. He doesn't like. I don't think that has anything to do with what tricks he's talking about. No, what he's talking about, really, honestly, at its core, is a spiritual practice that is there to like expand your consciousness into the infinite. To like, I'm just scratching the surface. Here's his book, High Magic. That's him. From the chin down. He's got a lot of tattoos.
What's I'm wrong with the rest of his face?
I know. That's a good question. So there's a weird sort of connection to something that happened to me like 15 years ago, maybe more. Yeah, it was like 15, 16 years ago when I was working at Borders in the evening, Borders Books, and someone recommended The Secret, which is this book that was on like the Oprah Book Club for a while by Rhonda Byrne. And I picked it up, and it's like in the self-help section. And everything she talks about in The Secret, first of all, she cites in The Secret people from like Einstein to Da Vinci, like these great artists, Beethoven, who all in their own way spoke about the same thing that she talks about in The Secret, which is sort of tied into what Damien Eccles talks about in his books on high magic. And that is like thoughts. Your thoughts are things, and like the ability to manifest something by focusing on it, like by focusing in a positive way on it. And that was The Secret. The Secret was like, we have this ability in us to manifest our reality by acknowledging that our thoughts are things. They have like weight, they have a gravitational pull, like the law of attraction is what she talks about, that which you think about you attract to your life, because thoughts have a gravitational pull. And that's essentially what Damien Eccles is saying. So when I listened to Damien Eccles and he's talking, I was like, that sounds a lot like The Secret, this book The Secret, which was a bestseller because Oprah put it on her book club and she like talked about it a lot. And I'm thinking, well, of course, like Oprah used this power to create her empire. I mean, if anyone is a practitioner of this
she's
stuff,
a witch.
Yeah, she's a witch. And I've just like opened my mind to all of that because I don't know. I mean, this stuff was practiced in ancient Sumeria, like the origins of this Western magic practice in ancient Sumeria. He talks a lot about Jesus, how Jesus, like for early references, was Jesus the Magi, like the early images of Jesus, the earliest that were ever like recorded. He had a wand in his hand, and the notion that he ascended after 3 days is very much rooted in some of the early notions of magicians who had achieved like a certain level, and what would happen to them after they died or expired. Right. Like their bodies would essentially disappear. And just like sort of blowing the lid off of what Jesus might have been, and how the Bible itself, which he says is one of two of like the foundational books that he recommends to anyone getting into this. He's like, you have to have a Bible next to you because the Old Testament was a book. It's all in code. It was a book written by kings for kings, but anything about Jesus, like Jesus, when you really break it down, was trying to give this power back to the people. Like the power that was reserved for kings he was giving it to the people. He's like, the kingdom of God is right here. It's at hand. Like it's within you. God is within you. And like, what a disruptive notion to put into the sort of the populace, like the peasant, that you don't actually have to do anything special to achieve whatever this is, like to discover God, right, the creative force. It's already in you.
Wait, so fishes and loaves.
Yeah.
Is that?
Oh, great question.
Is that in this context potentially a literal thing, or does that line of magic not quite cross into being able to manifest something like immediately?
That's what I mean? No, I do. I absolutely do.
Because there's like, it's like even the idea where you make a list.
Yeah.
And if you make a list of things you want to accomplish, it will be more likely statistically that you will accomplish those things.
Yes.
Than if you don't make a list. So I feel like there's a sort of metaphysical connection there, right?
Isn't there? Like, okay, go on. That feels like you're acknowledging that there's something to this, like the act of writing something down.
Well, okay, I definitely
increases the likelihood.
Understand any of it, which is kind of on brand for this podcast. But I mean, you talked about quantum physics in the beginning, and I mean, I think we don't really understand that either, except that it exists. Yeah. Even though the fact that two like identical particles can actually exist in different space simultaneously, so you can be in two places at one time.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if things, can be scientifically documented that are that weird, there's definitely potential for other weird stuff. Yeah. Or like the connection that twins have, across thousands of miles, or like parents and children, they're like, oh, I know that something happened. Right. It's easy to dismiss. I feel like it's also not that hard to take seriously, at least for me. Like, who knows? Sure, there's something going on. But so my question is, in a book like the Bible, in a situation where Jesus essentially multiplies the fishes and loaves, a small quantity into a large quantity, is that an instructive tale of some kind, or is it potentially meant to be literal in terms of magic?
That's a great question. I don't have that answer, and I haven't heard someone like Damien explain it in any way. Either way, what do you think?
I sort of hope that it's real.
Yeah.
I also, what's the phrase I'm looking for where a story teaches a lesson? Not a parable, but is it a parable?
Allegory, metaphor?
I don't know. It's a story that teaches a lesson, whatever the term for that is.
Yeah. Parable.
I'm not sure what the lesson is from Fishes and Loaves, if it is that. I mean, it's like a weird thing. It's something that stands out to me. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's supposed to be a miracle.
Exactly.
But I don't know that there are that many miracles that would be physically measurable. Like, look, I have a basket of bread and it's infinitely full. Like, that's very specific.
Right. Or taking a person who's crippled and healing them in front of, a group of people, saying like,
that's almost less magical to me than an infinite basket of bread.
He just shot that guy up with some adrenaline.
I don't know. Maybe he was a plant.
Like, that was a Pulp Fiction Uma Thurman scene right there. It was a plant.
Yeah, it was the guy in the audience that was like ready to go.
So were the fishes. He had some scuba divers underneath the boat, released a net full of them.
So that's magic with a C.
Yeah, with a big time C.
There's actually somebody at the bottom of the basket handing the loaves and the fishes up.
We're on to you, Jesus.
He was a magician. That's probably blasphemy for some people. I apologize.
Jesus Copperfield. Yeah, it is probably blasphemy.
Now it is. That definitely crossed the line. I feel like we were walking it before that, but now we're well beyond.
It's so hard to say. The Bible is such an interesting book, and all I can say is that through this new lens provided by Damien, I'm way more interested in picking it up and looking at like Old Testament stuff and New Testament stuff. And so another interesting point that was recently brought up to me is that I guess it's the Old Testament, when they mention like those old gods from like the times preceding, I guess what would have been Abraham, they don't say that they weren't gods. They say that they were, what do they say? I don't know if it's false gods. They basically acknowledge that they were gods, but that those aren't the gods to worship anymore. And that's an interesting thing, because if you sort of overlap that with what Damien is saying as like the origins of this Western magic come from ancient Sumer, where there are definitely certain gods that were worshipped, you have to start wondering like, okay, what was going on? Why would the whole evolution of like religion? And I think about like, if you remove Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and you start to evaluate like some of the threads in religion or spirituality in what I would call like hunter-gatherer cultures, like it's sort of like these things appeared, this need to explain away the unexplainable.
Sure.
Through a god or through spirituality or spirits, like that was there. And those things would have popped up independent of one another, like popped up in cultures independent of one another, like no overlap, no feeding one to the other. Yeah. But yeah. So like, what is there a commonality there? And is it not just, this is an easy explanation for the unexplainable because we lacked the science, or those cultures lacked the science? Or is there something that they're able to tap into, and this is just the way that they explain it? And we don't have, because we have Christianity telling us a certain thing, Judaism, Islam telling us certain things. And most of that is like paganism is paganism, and it is like the devil's work, or you'll go to hell if you like the way that like Lucifer was essentially, like the horned god came from Pan. Like Pan was an old pagan god, and they took Pan, and that's what Satan became this evil figure. And really, if you look at the Church of Satan, the actual Church of Satan. Like, there's nothing evil about it.
Yeah.
It's really more like libertarianism, self-empowerment.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I rambled. I apologize. This is a ramble. I want to let
That's
you
what
jump
we
in.
do here,
That's
man.
what we do here. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you. Hold on. I was just like, what are we still talking about? I mean, I think for anyone who studies world religion, it is pretty clear that all major world religions share effectively the same origin story. Like, there is a huge amount of overlap that I
Yeah.
feel like
Abrahamic.
if you put all those things next to each other, it would be hard to be like, yeah, they're not connected to each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that raises the question, because cultures around the world share similar origin stories, is the common factor that they were created by people to explain the unexplainable? Because, people, we try to explain things as humans. That's what we do. We look around and we're like, that doesn't make sense. I wonder why. Or was there actually something physical that caused all of those stories to be similar? And, that sort of ties into like, I don't know, were the Egyptian gods real in the whole Stargate series? Were there aliens around back then? And these were the gods. And sure, if there are aliens here, they probably have better control over the quantum realm, realm than we do. So maybe it is an actual physical thing. I don't know.
It's funny that you mention Stargate, because there was a man, what was it? It was like a like a CIA. I guess it was like a CIA. I don't even know what you'd call it. Like, not a study, but a program, a CIA program called the Gateway Experience. Like, they were researching how to escape space and time, and they called it the Gateway Experience. And
The
when you,
Gateway Experience?
I'm not even
that
kidding, like
seems
the
like a
Gateway process.
1980s drug thing.
Dude, it's great. And like using certain sound waves to achieve a state, like a state of consciousness that allows you to escape space and time. And then I'm like, wait, it's called the Gateway Experience. And the more you read it, you're like, this is this thing got declassified. And I don't know the time overlap, but I was like, it's definitely declassified around the time or maybe a little bit before Stargate, the series, comes out, which is funny because you just mentioned that. And I'm like, this, like, it's art imitating life.
We could make a show
art.
out of this.
I know, exactly. It's exactly what someone said. And it's almost like you make a show out of it. You make this fictional show out of it. So when someone brings up the real thing, they're like, oh, you mean like Stargate? And then immediately it's just like, it's a fiction show. That doesn't, that's not real. It's a fiction show. So no one will take it seriously. Like every alien movie ever made, like Spielberg and the rest, like E.T., it's like, it's like a movie, It's like, no, maybe this stuff is real. And the CIA, who have like unlimited funding, were onto something, and they knew you could like escape space and time. I don't know. It's crazy. But I saw this Vice article, and I'll pop it into the notes just about this. And there's so much like overlap here with with exactly what we're talking about, like using this concept of magic to like tap into the quantum field, expand your consciousness. I mean, to an extent, like they were trying to explore the ability to basically like astrally project. So
remote viewing.
Yeah, remote viewing. It's exactly that. You know about that. They were like, they're citing.
I studied this in college, my friend.
That's true. This they cite in this article, and I haven't read it, so I get some of the details wrong, but there was like a remote viewer who helped authorities track and apprehend like a fugitive who was in like 5 states away. Like, she remote viewed, found his location, they apprehended him. And this is real. Like, this is a remote viewer who helped the police do this. So this is real. People can do this. And why aren't we talking about this? Like, why aren't we right now? Isn't everybody rolling out their mat and working on transcendental meditation to like expand their consciousness?
We don't even need Zoom. You could just like do it in your
why aren't we
brain.
doing this? If the CIA know we can do it, it's possible. Why is it not widespread? It seems like an incredible ability. And what Damien says, like, this is the other fascinating thing for me, is this guy, what his reputation, like, he was thrust into the national spotlight and became the poster child for satanic ritual, for like everything evil about our youth. And they tied like Metallica and all this heavy metal music to him and to
Wait, did they
this.
ever find out who did it?
No, I don't think the killer. I think the killer or killers are still out
He's
there.
still out there. He could be listening right now.
Right now. What amazes me is that in the eyes of the public, in the eyes of the world, there was nothing more evil than him. Like, he was the embodiment of that. And everything about his message right now is positive. It's like, this stuff exists so that you can improve yourself and bring more good into your world and to the world around you. He's like, yes, like, of course it can be used for evil, but as long as there's greed in men's hearts, like in people's hearts, like, they'll always do something for evil. But his message is all positive. And that, to me, is like, that's the most powerful thing, is to come out of that experience, to be demonized the way you were by the media and by everybody in the public eye, and to just turn that around into something like beautiful and positive, and then to start to like spread that and try to empower others to the same thing, like that just hits home to me. And that's why I am sort of all in right now. So I'm using Magick for you, so that you don't get ill, so that you stay healthy all this year. I'm using Magick for your business, so that it has success. Like, I'm all in, man, and I want to spread the word. So that's what I'm doing today.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of common thought around, being able to manifest things with your thoughts, right? This is not like a new or revolutionary concept.
It's not.
But like, does it work? I feel like, because one of the questions, so I'm a little worried, because I actually tend to be a fairly negative person. So I'm like, am I causing my own problems?
That's ultimately why I wanted to talk about this today, Jason. This is as much an intervention as it is anything else.
Are there other people here? Who's off camera with you?
You guys can come out from behind the green screen now.
Okay.
So, and this is, this is getting personal, but when I first read the Secret, and that whole concept of like thoughts have an attractive quality to them, and that worry is just prayer for the thing that you don't want. I thought immediately of my mother. My mother's like the biggest worrier that I know in my lifetime that I've ever met. She worries more than anyone else, to the extent now that I'm like, I'm beyond trying to change that. And it's more, how do I shield myself from what I believe could be the negative ripples of her caught in a feedback loop of worry. And that's going to spiral outward. And the things that she worries about are the people closest to her. And I am definitely that. Her grandson, my son Grayson, is definitely that. And I think about that a lot. Like, how can I subtly try to shift her thoughts back to the positive? And I can't give her any scraps of negativity. It's like, I'm always great. Like, if she asks me, how's everything going? It's like, amazing. Everything's great. Life is so good. Seems like you guys are doing really well too. That is so great to hear. Just so that there's no morsel of negativity that could enter that little seed that could get planted in her head, that then, germinates and becomes this like horrible vine of negativity that wraps around her brain for the rest of the day.
That is very vivid.
And so the same for you, because I know that that you tend to be a pessimistic person. I think sometimes that works in your favor, because we've talked about this, your personality test, the personality traits, that you're never satisfied, and because of that, you're constantly like wanting to achieve the next thing. You're constantly wanting to continue to do. You're not resting on your laurels. I like that about you. I think that that's a good thing. But the negativity thing, that if you're going into a thing and you're not hopeful about the outcome of that thing, or you're too focused on it's not going to work, or it's going to be a failure, or blah, for your sake, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know. Me, I try to balance us out a little bit on this podcast. I love you, man. Don't change. Don't ever change. I mean, your shirt, look at that. You made that shirt. Your shirts are awesome. Your products are awesome.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing I could do, it'll just be to continue to be like, dude, we're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. You're crushing it, Jason.
I do. I mean, I do think that's helpful for me. So, I mean, also, thank you for being positive. If you were like, yeah, you really suck, I don't know why you're doing this, I feel like that could be a different outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't actually consider myself to be a negative person.
No, I don't either.
But I am a pragmatist.
Yes.
So, I don't know. It's like with all things in life, I'm kind of 50-50.
Yeah.
You're definitely like 80% positive or higher. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see where the chips fall. Yeah. But if I can, I don't know what I would say, through my thoughts, through my mental efforts, have like an impact on the outcomes of things around me. Probably being in the middle means I'm going to get middle outcomes, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Like coin flip. So I mean, I don't know. Even with specific projects, like for work, I'll be like, this is going to be amazing. And nobody likes it. And then I'll do something where I'm like, I do not like this at all. I don't think anyone else will either. And it completely blows up. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
but that's like why I just try stuff. Because I don't know. But if I thought everything was going to be amazing, would I have a higher success rate? I don't know.
I don't know either. I think there's only one way for you to find out, and that is to, invest some time and at least like meditation.
To go to prison for 18 years.
I know. You know what's wild?
That's a high price to pay for enlightenment.
It is a high price.
Would you pay it?
This is what I was just going to say, that there have been times in my life when I've felt like the sort of weight of stress around me over like work and all these responsibilities. This is before I was married, before I had a kid. So it was really just me having to take care of myself and maybe like, the coaching responsibilities, but it all felt like way too much. And I was like, man, if I went to prison, if I was like sent to prison and it was for a nonviolent crime and it was like 5 years, it's like I could read a ton of books. I could probably learn a few things like really well, because all you're doing is reading, you're working out, and now with Damien, this is what I would do. I would just go into prison and I would practice magic. I would meditate. That's all I would do. I would be better at controlling my thoughts and trying to expand my consciousness. So would I pay this price? I don't think I would want to do 18 years. I don't think I would want to do 8 of those in solitary. And I don't think I would want to be
beaten. That's a lot of solitary.
That's a lot of solitary. I don't think I'd want to be beaten every day.
Yeah.
That might be too high a price. But
what if that's the secret recipe?
He was great. And he said that. He's like, if I hadn't been beaten so hard and been in so pain, I wouldn't have had the need to use magic to escape from that pain, which is crazy that a person can have that perspective. I am thankful for the beatings by the prison guards, because it made me, it required that I become better at this practice.
Yeah.
What?
That definitely puts a new spin on, thank you, sir, may I have another? Well, so, all right. I feel like I've actually talked about this probably on the podcast before, and whatever episode I talked about being sick. So I'll try to tell this quickly. So when I was in college, I had gotten really sick, and I'd been like really sick for a week. And for a few days, you reach that point where you're like, okay, I'm getting better now. Like I can see the end of the road. And like after a couple days of that, I woke up again in the morning and was just completely back to square one, totally sick again. And I was like, what is going on? I cannot deal with this. And I was like sicker than I was the first time. And so one night I was laying in bed and I'm like, if I can't fix this, like I can't do more of this. I've already been sick for like 2 weeks. If I can't fix this myself, I don't know what I'm going to have to do. Like go to the hospital or whatever. Like I'm just done with it. So I sat there laying in bed for a few hours, intentionally kind of meditating and focusing. And I'm like, I am out of tools. I'm going to try the craziest thing I can think of. And so basically visualizing, breathing in clean air and breathing out the illness, and like, basically just over and over reducing that in my body until it was gone. And I fell asleep. And I woke up the next morning. I was like 80% fine.
Dude.
So that, I mean,
you've done it. You're a wizard. You've used
well, I've never thought of it that way. No, but I mean, that like really stands out to me as one of those times where I'm like, yes, maybe coincidentally, I was better the next day, but I am quite familiar with being sick and like what the progression of that is like. Yep. And so it stands out to me as something that was very, very different than the outcome that I was expecting, or that, the present evidence suggested. So yeah, it was crazy.
It took you 40 minutes to get to that story. Like, I can't, like, you used magic.
I think I've told it before.
Not on this podcast. No? You haven't.
I cured myself with my mind.
What year was that?
Freshman year.
That's incredible. So you were living with Mike D. No, you know what it was? It was the Neil Young songs.
That cured me.
It was the Neil Young songs.
Neil Young on repeat.
And the Pearl Jam.
I can still barely listen to Neil Young to this day.
That's so sad. I love Neil Young. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened to you. I am not sorry, though, that you, like, that is mind over matter. And so there's a guy named Wim Hof. His nickname is the Iceman. And he has a whole program that you now like purchase, or you can do these retreats with Wim Hof, the Iceman. He is famous for like extended ice plunges in sort of like glacial water. I think he's done like marathons in the snow, barefoot in nothing but shorts, like in the dead of winter, 0 degrees, barefoot in the snow, 0 degrees, shorts, no shirt. And
he didn't lose his feet.
Totally fine. He essentially, it's breath work. He is a master of using breathing to regulate his body temperature and control autonomous systems in your body that previously, I think most medical experts would say, you have no conscious control over, to the extent that he was actually brought in. Yeah. Is that what it is? Autonomic. Yeah. So he was brought in to be tested. And they injected him with like a bacteria or a virus that in 99% of people who receive it within 24 hours develop like flu-like symptoms, nausea, vomiting, blah, blah, blah. And what they were going to do was they're going to inject it into him, and he was going to immediately go into his little like breathing practice and meditation, whatever it is, to control his immune system. And they monitored his immune system, and he was able to like consciously adjust levels of like white blood cell count or whatever, and never develop symptoms over this thing. Yeah. It was essentially like mind over matter, and who knows if it was real? Maybe his body just did that in response to the to the bacteria.
Really good immune system.
Yeah, just had a really good immune system. Well, I think running marathons barefoot in the winter will do that for you. But he's another one I would advise the listener to go explore, because Wim Hof has superpowers, and people pay to adopt his methods, to learn his methods, so that they can enhance their own immune systems and start to play around with some of this stuff.
That makes me curious what their results are like. But I feel like it's, extremely well documented that you can, with your mind, control things like your heart rate, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It also seems much more plausible to me that you can use your mind to control your body and its functions than some object separate from you.
Yes. I'd agree.
So yeah, I feel like, can you control your body with your mind? Absolutely. To what degree is it physically possible, I think, is one question. And then to what degree can you do it? Just in terms of, I don't know, willpower, practice, whatever it is.
Breath work. I think a lot of it, the tie that I've noticed across all these disciplines, whether it's Wim Hof, whether it's this Western magic that Damien Eccles talks about, whether it's like Eastern meditative practices, is like breathing is central to it. Your breath is the common thread through them all. Is controlling your breath and using your breath as a means to like be present, to not let your mind wander, and then sort of controlling, like you said, your heart rate and all the rest, or what you did. which was really interesting, which was visualizing that you were inhaling healing and clean air and expelling the thing that was making you sick.
Yeah, I was like, I've heard of this. I am going to try it.
That's so amazing, dude.
But I was like so desperate. I think that's what made me like both committed and like a believer. I mean, in all those movies or whatever, you know, the person's trying to use your powers, but they can't because they don't believe it inside them. Right. And I was like, man, this is the last tool I have. I believe it's going to work. And it worked.
I hope if that situation repeats itself, that this becomes the first tool that you use, not the last.
You would think, but it's also hard. Yeah. Right. I mean, you would I feel like if you wanted to on a regular basis make yourself less sick when you got sick, you would have to practice a lot.
Yeah, I suppose.
So that you could be closer to like turning it on and off.
You didn't practice. You did it once.
No, but so it's the same thing in those movies where people are trying to use their powers. Like they can't do it on purpose, but they get into this extreme set of, you know, they're physical or emotional circumstances where everything lines up right. And that's what the vehicle is. And so I think my experience was more like that.
Got it. Well, then I think that we just need to give you COVID and then you'll have to use it. I'm kidding.
Well, that's definitely going to make a YouTube series.
Yeah, there it is.
That'll be viral. Yeah.
Oh, well done. I don't know that we can top that, what you just did. So I don't know if you have any follow stuff. I could go on, but I'm not. I think that we've touched what I want to touch on. I think hopefully I have impressed upon the listener my sort of excitement and passion for just discovering like the power of your thought. And Damien Eccles in particular, I'd say go check it out. Go find a podcast, or start with that Midnight Gospel episode. Or start with episode 1 and then jump to the one with Damien and tell me what you think about Midnight Gospel. And Jason, you should watch it too. They're like 20-minute episodes, but you definitely, if you do partake, if you partake of the herb, I highly recommend you do so when watching this, because I think it's just going to augment the experience like a 1,000-fold.
Get your notebooks out. Wait, so I have a question though.
Sure.
Because I always do. I know you're done.
I know. I'm ready for it.
I'm done.
Closing. I didn't rap because I knew you always do.
I'm so predictable. Can you move a glass of water with your mind?
Jason, you can't move the glass of water with your mind because that's impossible. But what you have to remember is there is no glass of water.
Thank you, Neo. What's that Latin phrase? Know thyself.
Yes, right.
So, I mean, and this is just something I was thinking about before. We're talking about like having an impact on things. I don't know what the right word is with your mind or emotions. So I think it's plausible that you can affect your body because it's part of the same system. Whether you can, like if you're really positive, well, positive things happen to you. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of that middle ground.
Yeah.
Where, maybe you're kind of interacting with the universe in kind of a soft way. Like you're open to possibilities and things that might happen around you. Yep. I think the step beyond that is like direct control, which we talked about a little bit, in terms of like quantum physics and that sort of thing. So do you think people have the ability potentially to like physically interact with the world around them? I guess through your mind or through the
telekinesis,
like through using the force. Is the force real? This is my question.
No, it's a great question. Like telekinesis, essentially. Yeah. Man, I want to believe, like full X-Files style. Like I want to believe, and so therefore I do, and therefore I do. I think that. I mean, hasn't that been documented? Aren't there video on YouTube of people that can move a coin across a table, or is that all? I don't
think so.
I don't think so either. I don't think that's been documented. I don't know.
All of those things have been debunked, but I'm just kind of like, really, one person throughout all of history doesn't have a superpower that's related to quantum physics.
I have to believe that it's possible, and that the CIA knows about it, and they probably have people that are doing it right now, just for nefarious purposes. I want to use it for good. That's it. That's all I want to do. I just want to use it for good, for myself and for the people around me, for the world. I'm committed to it. Agent
your
of
car's
light.
stuck in the snow. Now
That's
it's
right.
not.
That's right. That's
Let
right.
me pick it up for you and move it over.
Yeah. There's a lot of that around here too. I'd be a hero in Vermont.
Yeah. You do not want to eat that entire pint of ice cream.
I need that on myself, my man. Still getting there. To the listener, Maker Minute is Damien Eccles, but definitely go check out that Midnight Gospel episode. I am putting out good thoughts for all of you and for Jason. And to Jason, thank you very much.
I think I can feel it right now.
I hope you can. I hope you're buzzing a little bit. I'm Ben.
Tingly.
I'm no magician. I'm also no expert.
I'm Jason. I am a magician, but I'm no expert. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.